good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, at whatever time you are joining us for this online worship video. I am glad that you are here. This is a worship video of the First Parish Church of Kingston, Massachusetts. I am the Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson. I serve this church as its minister, and I use she, her pronouns. Today's video represents the last worship service of the regular church year, as we note the summer solstice and move into the season of summer. This year, summer worship will continue to be online, and we will get to hear from a variety of ministers who share this southeastern Massachusetts context with us, and whose reflections about how to live in the world in this time will enrich us all. For now, let us begin, as we do each week, by centering ourselves even deeper into this truth, that what we need is here. Please join with me in singing our introit. If you have a chalice, a candle, or the Worship Web app on your smartphone, I invite you to join with me in kindling a flame to symbolize the beginning of this time of centering and grounding. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. It represents the promise that we work to achieve, the promise of a world where all people are free and safe and able to be their full selves, the promise of a world where we care for the environment and for our neighbors and for ourselves, the promise of a world of collective liberation. Each time we kindle a chalice, we remind ourselves that this is the beacon that draws us on. We remind ourselves that ours are not the only lights, and therefore we never do this work alone. And we remind ourselves that we draw strength always from the world around us, from the flame that is kindled before us, and from the warmth of the sun. In that spirit, please join with me in singing hymn number 66, When the Summer Sun is Shining.
When the summer sun is shining over golden land and sea, and the flowers in the hedgerow welcome butterfly and bee, then my open heart is glowing full of
this time of creating community at a distance, we gather on Zoom to share our personal joys and sorrows. At this time, I will light these candles, red for courage and love, and gold for gratitude and blessing. We light once again a red candle for all the healthcare providers, all the essential workers, all those who are answering the call to help, to heal, to make the world a little safer, and to help so many people get what they need. We light another red candle for all those who are vulnerable in this time. Those who are made vulnerable by their circumstances, because they are unhoused or undocumented or imprisoned or at risk within their shelter. All those who struggle with mental illness or financial insecurity or the weight of despair. We light a red candle for the many people who have felt the weight of oppression for such a long time. Those who are at risk of violence because of their racial identity or their gender identity, and those whose needs are overlooked or denied because of those identities. And we light a red candle for all those who are grieving, all those whose burden of loss is heavy. We send our love. A gold candle of gratitude for many leaders in many places, doing the best they can. And for all those scientists still working to come up with treatments and vaccines, anything to make this pandemic less deadly. A gold candle for the many activists leading protests and casting visions of a world made new, a world more just for more people. A gold candle for artists and creators, for all those people making offerings that give us spiritual sustenance, for teachers, and for everyone who is trying to connect and support even amidst very trying times. A gold candle for all those people who have acted in solidarity, all those people who have shared of their resources, who have given masks and food, who are giving money and time and doing what they can to fix the ills we struggle with today and to build a better world for tomorrow. A gold candle for summer, for the coming of a time of rest, a time of abundance, a time to nurture the good that is growing and to weed out that which does not serve us. And finally, a gold candle for love, which is always present in us, among us, and through us. May these lights be lights that we carry with us. May these practices of naming, courage, and love, and gratitude, and blessing sustain us. To further sustain our work toward a world made new, please join in singing hymn number 1026, If Every Woman in the world.
If every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom, if every woman in the world dreamed a sweet dream of peace, if every woman of every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every man in the world had his mind set on freedom, if every brother stood with brother as a witness for peace, if every man of every nation, young and old, each generation, held his hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every leader in the world shared a vision of freedom, if every leader in the world shared a sweet dream of peace, if every leader of every nation worked for justice and liberation, holding hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every nation in the world set a true course for freedom, if every nation raised its children in a culture of peace, if all our sons and all our daughters reached for friendship across the waters, refusing to be enemies, there would be no more war.
A reading for us as we enter into summer in these times. This poem is titled Instructions for the Journey. It is by Pat Schneider. The self you leave behind is only a skin you have outgrown. Don't grieve for it. Look to the wet, raw, unfinished self, the one you are becoming. The world, too, sheds its skin. Politicians, cataclysms, ordinary days. It's easy to lose this tenderly unfolding moment. Look for it, as if it were the first green blade after a long winter. Listen for it, as if it were the first clear tone in a place where dawn is heralded by bells. And if all that fails, wash your own dishes, rinse them. Stand in your kitchen at your sink. Let cold water run between your fingers. Feel it.
The heart is not a room with space to fill.
The heart is a door that opens to more and more. The heart is not a room with space to fill. The heart is a door that opens to more and more. The heart is not a room
to this land
with space to fill. The heart is a door
to this land
that opens to more and more. The heart is not a room
to this land
with space to fill. The heart is a door
to this land
that opens to more and more. The heart is not a room
to this land
with space to fill. heart
to this land
that
to
opens to more and more. The heart
to this land
with
to
space to fill. The heart is a
to
door
this land
that
to
opens to more and more. The heart is not a room with space to fill. The heart is a door that opens to more and more. The heart is not a room with space to fill. The heart is a door that opens to more and more.
In an email a few weeks ago to Unitarian Universalist leaders and religious professionals, our UUA president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, wrote this: "This is the most heartbreaking, difficult, and important time I have experienced in ministry. The layers of trauma, anger, grief, power, and hope, they are all present in our bodies and souls. As religious leaders, we must tend to these in ourselves, and we must give them voice and space in story, music, reflection, ritual, action, and protest. This is vital, essential ministry, and it is exhausting. How are we going to sustain ourselves for the long haul? None of us is functioning at full capacity, and the pastoral and prophetic demands keep rising." And then she wrote, "Take time off, dear ones." Now, maybe in these last few weeks or last few years, you've heard the phrase, taking shifts for the revolution. It's a way of encapsulating the truth that building the world we dream of is long-haul work, which we know that we cannot do it alone. And each of us as an individual cannot do it all the time. Our egos tend to forget this. Every one of us has an ego that whispers to us that the work that we are doing is so important that we can't possibly take a break. The work must get done, and only I can do it. Or the work might get done by someone else, but then it might not get done to my standards or reliably. Or maybe the work could be done by someone else, and then everyone will realize they didn't need me specifically after all. So I'd better just keep doing it, and that way everyone will know that I am indispensable. Does that sound familiar? Or maybe that's just how my ego talks to me. A revolution, a powerful set of changes in the ways that we relate to each other and the world, requires our willingness to re-examine things that at first glance look irrelevant. Things like whether or not we feel able to rest. There is a powerful project called the NAP Ministry, an organization founded in 2016 by Tricia Hersey, who is a Black chaplain currently living in Atlanta. According to the website, it is an organization that examines the liberating power of naps. We engage with the power of performance art, site-specific installations, and community organizing to install sacred and safe spaces for the community to rest together. We facilitate immersive workshops and curate performance art that examines rest as a radical tool for community healing. We believe rest is a form of resistance and name sleep deprivation as a racial and social justice issue. When I first encountered the nap ministry, I thought, oh, how cute, naps for grown-ups. That sure must be nice. I wish that I had time to nap, but of course I don't, because I am just way too busy to take naps. I seem to need to re-encounter this idea over and over again, that being busy is not actually something that defines my value as a person. Brene Brown warns about busyness as a form of numbing out our emotions. She says some people drink too much, and some people eat too much, and some people work too much. And it's all to avoid having to deal with what we actually feel. I remember reading an interview with her 4 or 5 years ago where she said this, and I was struck by it. How I realized that sometimes when I was unhappy, and I didn't want to feel unhappy, I just found another something to do, more email to answer. This past week, I read one of Tricia Hersey's essays, this one titled Rest Supports Grieving, and I ran into that truth again. Like all of us, I am grieving on several levels. Some of it I can identify and hold, but some of it I hide from. Hersey writes, "We are grieving and may not even want to recognize it or hold space for it because of our socialization to keep going. This denial of the process of grieving creates more trauma and in the long run disrupts our healing." In a typical year, after this service, I would get on a plane or a train and I would go to General Assembly. I would see beloved colleagues who live far away. I would eat good food. I would have a hotel room all to myself. I would go to enriching professional development workshops and sing in the religious professionals choir and worship with thousands of other UUs and take walks in the parks of some new city. I am so desperately sad that it is not happening this year. And I don't always want to feel that sadness. How can I feel so self-indulgently sad when I can see how much suffering there is in the world? How many people are grieving loved ones who have died? How many people are oppressed by racial injustice and endangered by transphobia? How many people's lives are threatened by the ongoing pandemic and the likelihood of a fall resurgence? And yet, it turns out that my soul is able to hold all of those things. I can hold space for the suffering and the grief of others, for the big fears and the uncertainties, and still have room to be sad about losing something important to me. So one thing I will do this summer is to take time to rest, and in that rest, to grieve. It is this grieving that allows us to do as the poet calls us to do, to set aside all our need to distract ourselves, to deal with what is, and to attend to what is emerging. Another thing that I and we are doing this summer is taking shifts in a way that means recognizing our interdependence and our collective strength with other Unitarian Universalists. Once I get my ego to settle down and accept that we are taking shifts which means taking shifts off, recognizing that I don't have to do everything myself, and yet everything will get done. I get to partner with others, which I find joyful and life-giving. This summer, First Parish is part of a summer worship consortium. With 8 other congregations in Massachusetts, we will share the work of creating online service videos. Each minister and their worship team, whomever that may be for summer, is responsible for creating one online worship video to be shared with all the congregations in the consortium, and for offering a Zoom call for the members of that worship team's congregation. This means that our congregation gets the benefit of hearing from other ministers and observing how other congregations are doing online worship in this time, and still gets to maintain a weekly Sunday morning gathering hosted by our members, 4 members of this congregation, to continue checking in with each other, sharing joys and sorrows, talking about takeaways from the service, and discussing whatever else is on our collective minds and hearts that Sunday morning. I am so excited about this opportunity. It lays the groundwork for us to be more deeply interconnected, more deeply relational, and that is at the heart of our faith as a covenantal people. I like to imagine that someday, when it's possible to say, let's drive to another town and have a potluck dinner with another congregation, and I do believe that that will be possible again someday, we will have the beginnings of relationships because we shared these summer services. And that will be a fruitful garden bed, and I can't wait to see what grows out of it. And yet, of course, my ego is also wondering if maybe this means that this summer you all will decide that you like someone else's services better. And then maybe it would just be safer if I didn't take any time off and I did all the services myself, and then you would know that I am indispensable. You can see where this ego conversation goes so quickly. So I know that taking time for myself to rest this summer is a truly radical act and a spiritual practice I need to devote some focus to. We will keep taking shifts this fall in another development, which I'm quite excited about. Jen and I have been meeting with staff members at 2 other UU congregations, one in Pennsylvania and one in Oregon, to talk about what it means to share a religious enrichment program so that we can better meet the needs of these strange times. This means Jen's work in supporting families with young children can be shared with 2 other congregations, in the same way that the Ellery Church Mouse Instagram is shared with UUs and with all kinds of spiritual seekers all over the place. Did you know that Ellery even has fans among Canadian UUs? Our little church mouse is internationally known. And this consortium means we can create the critical mass needed to offer youth programming for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and maybe even do coming of age in some hybrid model with online sessions and in-person mentoring. We are enjoying exploring what is possible. And as we get our arms around it, I look forward to describing it more fully to you. This means working as a team, taking shifts, sharing ideas and specialties, looking at the strongest parts of what each congregation can offer, and then trusting that among all of us we can do what needs to be done. church is, as always, where we practice being the people the world needs. That has not changed because we have learned to do things online. Sometimes we practice for what each of us needs. We practice for our own spiritual development and grounding. That work always radiates out into the world. Taking shifts in our worship life, our RE program, and maybe more. Truly, stay tuned. I am having the most thrilling conversations with other congregational leaders. Taking shifts is good for us. It's good for our congregation. It's good for other congregations we partner with. And it builds our skill in taking shifts so that our work for racial justice and social change is sustainable, because we know that it will be long haul work. We do not have to fall into the trap of either working full tilt all the time or giving up completely on making change. We need to cultivate our ability to work, to rest, to work again, and to rest again. And we must cultivate our ability to dream. At one of their performance art pieces, the NAP ministry put up a tent and bedding in a park and invited people to come and take a nap. The sign inviting folks in read, "Enter into a dream space. Naps are a healing portal. Join our rest movement." When we rest, when we have space to grieve what needs grieving and replenish what is depleted, when we hold still to be present to what is, we also open up space for new ideas to emerge. We synthesize the separate things that we've learned, and out of that synthesis, we create new visions for the future. We make connections that we might have missed while we were frantically busy. We surprise ourselves. May you have time to rest this summer. May you have time to simply be, to feel, to nap, to dream. May you know that you are enough, whether you are on or off shift for the revolution. And may you know that you are never doing this alone. To affirm our collective commitment to keep showing up and taking our shifts for the revolution, please join with me in singing "Answering the Call of Love."
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning.
when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
We have come now to the close of our time of worship to symbolize the conclusion of this space of contemplation. Please join with me in extinguishing your chalice. We know that the flame goes out in our candles or on our apps, but that light we carry within us always. To further send us on into our days, please join with me in singing our benediction.
With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world.
This summer, may you bless the world by taking good care of yourself, paying attention to what is needed for your safety and for the liberation of us all. Keep washing your hands and wearing your mask. Discover ways to show our values to the world, whether with yard signs or donations or conversations. Study to continue investing in your own development, and also rest so that you are able to replenish yourself. This summer, may you dream, and may your dreams help us all move toward a better world. And don't forget, there will still be weekly gatherings on Zoom. You will not be alone. May you be well. I love you.